Bruce Lee didn't lose on-screen fights, and for good reason. It was not only his strict professional policy to ensure his characters would establish Chinese pride and effectively show off his own created martial art, Jeet Kune Do, but also, during his incredible 1971 to 1973 run, which saw the release of 4 films that made Lee an international icon and kickstarted a global kung fu movie craze that spanned the 70s and beyond, audiences didn't want to see Lee defeated. Oh sure, he would face tough challenges from opponents seemingly his equal, such as Chuck Norris in Way of the Dragon or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 1978 posthumous release Game of Death. But still, Lee would always rally and vanquish his opponents, and that's what fans, enamored with his badass persona, wanted to see. Which might help at least partly explain why a certain sequence in the 2019 Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was so controversial, as it not only depicted Lee arguably losing a fight, but this wasn't even meant to be one of Lee's fictional characters, but rather the actual Bruce Lee himself. Of course, it was not the actual Bruce Lee in the film, but a Lee played by Korean-American actor and martial artist Mike Moh. In the scene, an arrogant, boastful Lee, seen bragging about how he would cripple Cassius Clay in a real fight, subsequently engages in an impromptu best-of-3 first-hit-the-ground sparring match against the tough Hollywood stuntman Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt, on the set of the 1966 TV show The Green Hornet, the series that first made Lee a star in America. In the first round, Lee easily kicks Booth to the ground, but in round 2, Booth violently throws Lee into the side of a car. Round 3 is interrupted before an official victor can be declared, though even the fact that Booth and Lee are seen evenly fighting to a possible standstill was more than some fans like to see. It's notable that Tarantino's original script did call for Booth to win, but Brad Pitt objected to this, arguing for the unresolved outcome instead. Still, even in its eventual form, the scene drew criticisms and condemnations from not only many of Lee's fans, but also some who knew him, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who called the scene sloppy and racist, and Lee's daughter Shannon, who said it was painful to see her father portrayed as a jerk, and called Tarantino an arrogant asshole for his depiction of Lee. Tarantino's refusal to cut the scene even led to the film's release in China being cancelled. In his own defense, Tarantino argued there was historical basis for his depiction of Lee, pointing out that Lee's widow Linda had allegedly said Lee felt he could beat Muhammad Ali in her biography of her late husband. More significantly, Tarantino pointed to alleged stories of how the stuntman on the Green Hornet series did consider Lee arrogant, and hated working with him because of how rough he was with them in their fight scenes. Lee's co-star, Van Williams, who played the titular Green Hornet, has claimed Lee dislocated a set designer's jaw with his habit of randomly high-kicking people on set, and Bruce Lee's friend and stuntman Gene LaBelle has stated he was tasked with calming Bruce down on set, acknowledging how much the other stuntmen dreaded working with him. However true those claims may be, it should also be noted that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes place in Tarantino's fictionalized fantasy version of reality. The movie also ends with Cliff Booth and fictional movie star Rick Dalton defeating the Manson family and sparing the life of Sharon Tate. That Tarantino included Lee at all in his tribute to what he sees as the glory days of the movie business is arguably just more testament to the enduring status of Lee's legacy and legend. After all, it's doubtful that, years from now, anyone will similarly make a movie featuring a behind-the-scenes sequence from the 2000s movie inspired by Lee's first iconic role. The year is 2011, and Sony and Columbia Pictures are ready to unleash a new comedic take on a classic pulp character of radio, television, and comics, and in the process hopefully launch the next big superhero movie franchise with The Green Hornet. Welcome once again to Fair That a Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris. So let's roll, Trevo.
All right. Buzz, buzz, buddy. You know what I mean?
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey,
green
did you...
bee.
That's right, with the green bee. Hey, did you notice, I'm just going to get into it now, rather,
Sure.
so I don't forget this later, but So we have done, in recent episodes, we of course did Dr. Detroit, and then our mind was blown when we did Car 54, Where Are You, and featuring the character of Detroit Dan. And then did you realize that this character we're talking about today has a Detroit connection?
Yeah, I know. I can't get away.
I know, this is so exciting. This is just, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Well, we are we'll explain that connection in a moment, but we are rolling along with Summer Surprise, and hey, you know what? How apropos! As we record this, a superhero movie. Everyone says they're dead. Obviously not. A superhero movie just made almost $1 billion in one weekend. As we record this, we're gonna look at a superhero movie that did slightly less than that, but we are talking superheroes this episode, and that is because the Summer Surprise online randomizer brought up for us 2011's The Green Hornet. Chris, why don't you tell the listeners about this one?
For sure. This is directed by Michel Gondry. He's another music video guy. Last episode we talked about that, but he's done upwards of 100 music videos from Bjork, Sinead O'Connor, Daft Punk, Rolling Stones, Sheryl Crow, Kylie Minogue, who I love.
Incredible music videos too.
Yes.
He is one of the all-time greats. Yeah, his White Stripes videos are amazing. Just to definitely go check him out.
Oh yeah. But the two theatrical feature films I think he's most known for is Be Kind, Rewind, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's an all-time classic. Yep.
Yeah. This movie is written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Heard of them? Superbad, Pineapple Express, This Is the End. I mean, Seth Rogen's having a moment the last few years with The Studio on Apple TV, and The Boys just wrapped up. Him and Evan Goldberg had executive produced that show as well. But this Green Hornet is actually based on a 1936 radio program. So not even a comic, not even a book. We're going so far back to Trev's youth.
That's right. I remember when I was listening to the debut episode.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just started college.
College. The radio program was created. We should probably tell who created it, but it was George W. Trendle and Fran Stryker.
That's right. And this is the Detroit connection, because the original station it was made for was WXYZ in Detroit in 1936. So.
Yeah, and that's why you did hear it too, which is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we can say now, this might come up again in a little bit when we talk more about the character, but it's also important to note that George W. Trendle and Fran Stryker also created the Lone Ranger. And in fact, there's a little bit of a connection between the two. But so I just wanted to give their bona fides as well. That was another radio character they created.
For sure. Seeing that this is a character from the 30s, I think we should probably start talking about the character himself.
Well, don't you want to talk about the budget and the gross?
Oh, yes. I've forgotten how to do the show.
That's right.
Only done 100.
And you say, I'm the old guy with Alzheimer's. Okay.
No rebuttal. Okay. The budget of The Green Hornet, $120 million. Domestically, it made $98.7 million. And worldwide, $227.8 million, which is not bad.
No, people saw it.
But not enough, which we will get to, and the reasons why the budget was pretty inflated at that point.
And I will say that number, though, when I saw the worldwide gross, I don't know if you felt the same way, that was definitely higher than I expected it to be.
Same.
Because in my mind, I felt like this was an infamous bomb, and like I said, it didn't do enough to get sequels, obviously, but that's a higher number than I thought. More people saw this than I thought.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But before we talk about the character proper, I just want to ask you: did you see this in theaters?
I did not see this in theaters. This is not my first time watch. I came to it on video, but no, not in the theaters. What about you?
I did see it in theaters. Okay. Funnily enough, my cousin, who is not with us anymore, he had a radio show here. Funnily enough, because of the IP here, but he had a radio show, and we had media passes to go see it. So through the radio station, we had seen this opening weekend, like the preview screening. So yeah, I was one of the first people in the world to see Green Hornet.
I honestly can't even remember why I didn't see it in the theaters, because I'm sure we'll get into this, but I like Seth Rogen well enough. I'm a Seth Rogen fan.
Oh, yeah.
And this is obviously 2011 is still the very early days of this modern superhero boom. So I don't really know what kept me away from this. I don't have the memory of that necessarily, but I definitely came to it a little bit later when it hit DVD.
Now, I know I made a joke about your, background with the character, but is this character, does it mean anything to you? You missed out on the movie, so probably not actually.
Well, so because you said earlier that you said he's not a comic character or anything. I mean, let's clarify that. So yes, he starts as a radio character, but by the time we get to this movie, he has become kind of like a mass media, pop culture character. In that there are definitely Green Hornet comic books, and then of course the famous TV show. I am definitely aware of the Green Hornet, or I was aware of the Green Hornet by the time this show came along, or this movie, for a few particular reasons. One of them being that one of the comic book runs, the one from Now Comics in the 80s, I think I did pick up some issues of that when I was a kid. Because I was, when I was a kid, I would just go to like bookstores, or they sold comic books in grocery stores and drugstores back then. And you would just buy like whatever comic book had like a cool cover. And I think I'd picked up some of the Green Hornet comics at that time. So I was always aware of like Green Hornet and Kato. And that especially speaks to, also, they made like a cameo appearance, the actors from the TV show, which we'll get into that in a second, but they made a cameo appearance in the Adam West Batman show. So I remember them from that, So it's like, I always knew about the Green Hornet and Kato. I knew like the basic idea, but it's never been a favorite character of mine or anything. Like, it's not one I cared too much about. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, but Trevor, like whenever he do these kind of things, he has to do his research. And I bet he went and watched like an episode of the TV show. And I'm here to tell you, I did not. Now, did I watch the 1974 movie, The Green Hornet, where they took 3 episodes of the TV show and edited it together? Yes, I did.
You psychopath.
Well, we'll talk about it. But and obviously, just to get this out of the way too, like most people, I think my main kind of like pop cultural awareness of Green Hornet is not even about the Green Hornet. It's about Kato, because Kato was played, of course, by Bruce Lee in the 60s TV show. And that was kind of like Bruce Lee's like, screen debut. And he's like, it was only a 1-season show, but for the time it was on, he totally stole the show. He's the one everyone cared about. And that's like the main like level of fame that character still today, I think, is like, oh, that's the show that Bruce Lee started on. So.
Yeah, it was the first time that like Asian martial arts was seen on American TV. So it really launched Bruce Lee's career, and just a growing attention to the art form. So very, very cool, very cool. My relationship with the character is honestly through Kevin Smith. I like knew about Bruce Lee, of course. But Kevin Smith, for a long period of time, like yourself, used to listen to him a lot. Not so much anymore, but back in the day, he had his blog, he had his podcast, he had this, he was just like everywhere, for geek culture. So when he did his run of Green Hornet comics in, I think, the late 2010, before the movie actually, I don't know if I ever read them, but I knew he was working on them, and because he will tell you a story for 4 hours about the same thing, I knew a lot about the character through his eyes. So I'm assuming you didn't pick up his interpretation.
No, I have read some of his.
Oh, yeah,
I have. Yeah.
Was it good? Like, was it like acclaimed at all, or what?
I don't
like,
know
more
if it was
than
acclaimed.
His Batman stuff.
I remember thinking it was fine. I didn't have anything against it. That's the thing, is like I mentioned how I picked up some of the Now comics when I was younger. In more recent years, including the Kevin Smith run, the Green Hornet has been in the purview of like Dynamite Comics, and I've definitely read some of those runs, because like I've read some of the Kevin Smith one. Mark Waid wrote a little Green Green Hornet thing, and there's been a Green Hornet Shadow crossover, and I read that. This came up before when we did our Pulp Friction miniseries about how I am like I do love just like these pulp characters.
Sure.
And so Green Hornet falls into that a little bit, but like I said, I've never had the affinity for him that I do for like the Shadow or some of like the Rocketeer and some of those other like pulp characters we've looked at. But I've still definitely read some of it, and the Kevin Smith connection like goes even deeper than that, because I know we'll mention this in a moment, but his comic book was in fact him finally like putting like a version of the screenplay he was trying to do for a movie version out into the world. So.
Yeah, and that was one incarnation that never got off the ground. We're going to talk about a bunch, actually. Kevin Smith was one of the last people to attempt before the version we got now. But I think let's dial it back even more so, and let's actually give a bird's eye view, I guess, of who the Green Hornet is. Okay, as a character.
Yeah, I think that's important, because, like I said, it's one of those weird things. I assume you'd agree with this, where I feel like everyone knows the Green Hornet is a character, and yet I don't think this character especially today, has just had like the kind of like everlasting pop cultural like impact, and I don't think it's definitely not a character that everyone knows Batman is Bruce Wayne, everyone knows Spider-Man is Peter Parker. I don't think you could go up to a lot of people and they would be able to tell you the specifics of Green Hornet. They just would go like, oh yeah, Green Hornet, that's that hero, I guess. That's probably
I'm glad you mentioned Batman right away, because do you think it's because Batman exists? Is that why? Like, because they're so similar, these two characters, which we're about to talk about. Do you think Batman exploded that just has left Green Hornet in its shadow? So when anybody tries to bring it back to the forefront of audiences, it just feels kind of, I don't want to say lame, but old.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Batman also has a $1 billion conglomerate company behind him, in the form of Warner Brothers and DC, right? So being part of a larger overall universe, like obviously some of these like DC and Marvel characters get to kind of have a little bit of a juggernaut behind them that some of these more independent characters don't. Like, the Green Hornet is owned by Green Hornet Incorporated. Right? It's just a company that like licenses out the property. Yeah. So I just don't think the character has been able to hold on as much. And even like, the Green Hornet 60s show is on at the same time as the Batman show, and it's even the same producer, right?
Sure.
And he's the narrator for both shows. The Batman show gets multiple seasons, Green Hornet gets one, and there's obviously different reasons for that too. The Green Hornet show is a little more serious. Batman's funnier, so it seems like obviously that's the one that kind of picks up a little bit more. But I do think Batman obviously eclipses him for sure. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's
I hate to say it, but Trev, you're right. I hate to say it.
Yeah, it's like he's not as cool. Like in terms of like those similarities, the two characters I think he's most similar to, he's kind of like they're both cooler than him, right? And that's Batman and the Shadow. Like they're both like they're both just like they're more badass than the Green Hornet essentially, And I also think, and I know we're about to explain it. I think like the central conceit of Green Hornet is like a little hat on a hat. I don't know. It's like
confusing.
It's a little overly complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And what that is, ladies and gentlemen, is that Green Hornet is the alter ego of one Britt Reed, who's a wealthy publisher of the Daily Sentinel newspaper. Yeah. By night, he wears a long green coat with gloves, a green fedora, a hat, and a green mask, and he fights crime with his masked partner and confidant, Kato, who also kind of builds him his gadgets and drives his car, and the car is called Black Beauty. So that's the main kind of character description. Now, this is where it gets confusing, is that they are fighting crime, but they want the public and the police to believe that the Green Hornet is a criminal. So they make it seem like they're committing crimes while infiltrating the crime underworld and then leaving, incriminating evidence to be found.
Yes.
Why can't they just fight the crime?
It's really weird. It's like, the whole thing is they, like you said, they want the public, they want the police, and they even want the other criminals to think they're criminals so that they can kind of like set up these meetings with criminals and they're like, we're all
they're like Dr. Detroit again. It's we can't get away.
It does feel like a little bit of an unnecessary extra step, and I think again that's probably some of the you want sometimes your characters to just be streamlined and easy to understand. And I can tell you from going and watching that movie, the 74 movie. Now, to be fair, probably not the best representation of it.
Sure.
Kind of like an infamous. There was actually two of them. I only watched the first one. These were infamous examples of Bruceploitation, where after Bruce Lee died, people were like, "Oh God, we need more Bruce Lee content." So obviously they got a lot of fake Bruce Lees and made fake Bruce Lee movies. But then the producer of the show also took just like episodes and strung them together into movies and put them out in theaters. In 74. And I watched the first one, which is just called The Green Hornet. She's more even like kind of cynical and outrageous as the second one is called Fury of the Dragon, even though it's a Green Hornet movie.
God. Wow.
But the first one, Green Hornet, so it's like it's 4 episodes put together. But then it's really strange because they remove the narration from the show and just string the episodes together. No connective tissues. So suddenly like the storyline will end like 20 minutes in and you just pick up a new storyline. But they still don't have enough to like pad to feature length. So like in the middle of one of the storylines, they'll just cut to like a random fight scene from another totally unrelated episode. So just to show off more of like Bruce Lee's skills. So it kind of gives the movie this bizarre, surreal feeling where nothing feels connected. I don't even know why I was bringing that up or making that point, but just so a strange way to kind of be introduced to the character. Oh, I know what I was saying about it was that even watching that movie, the whole thing about them like posing as criminals, it like barely comes into play in a way that seems like it justifies that being a part of his story. Like just be a vigilante. It's fine. Yeah. We don't need that extra element.
Well, it's like Batman, right? Like I funnily enough too, Trev, you know this. I've been on a Batman spree of rewatches. I was inspired from a documentary that I watched, and I went back to I started out the 89 Batmans. I didn't go as far back to watch the 60s movie, but I watched the 89 all the way up to I guess Dark Knight Rises. I'm skipping Batman v Superman. I don't feel like watching that again, and I still need to rewatch The Batman from 2022. My wife has not seen that one, so we might watch that even tonight. But it's interesting that I've been in like Batman mania, and then to approach the Green Hornet while I'm doing this, and Batman is kind of not a wanted criminal, but he has feeling like do you know what I'm trying to say? Like he's working outside the law.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on the interpretation you're looking at. I mean, sometimes he's like buddy with all the cops, and sometimes the cops mostly are like skeptical of Batman, and sometimes he is viewed as like a criminal, you know.
Yeah,
but it's never positioned that he's like trying to make himself seem like a criminal.
Totally.
Right? And
like he's planting evidence to make it seem like he's the bad guy. Yeah,
and using his media empire to write stories about how Green Hornet is actually like a criminal mastermind, you know.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
So, strange to say the least, but I like that you... Oh, sorry. No, you go. You go. No, you go. You go.
I want you to... You go.
You know what we call that up here, up north? We call that a Canadian standoff.
Oh, okay.
When you're trying to open the door for another person, Canadian standoff. Yeah. I was going to mention that I like that you said about the Lone Ranger connection.
Oh, well, that's exactly what I was about to bring up.
Well, look at us. Look at us. Big brains. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you have this one then.
It is just kind of fascinating that for as much as we just said about the characters, like maybe overly complicated, one kind of neat thing about his history and like his overall, you know, backstory is that this is like a really, really early example of like kind of shared universe stuff, right? Like these creators, and this is almost just kind of like maybe like a little bit of a coincidence. I don't know if it's something they thought of right away or something they came to later.
Sure.
But in that original radio incarnation, since those two creators had also created the Lone Ranger, they just decided, you know, they named Green Hornet Britt Reed, and then it turns out that he is the son of Dan Reed Jr., who we discover is the nephew of the Lone Ranger. So the Green Hornet is the great nephew of the Lone Ranger. And of course, they're both like, you know, they're both do-gooders wearing a mask. They both have a sidekick, you know, Tonto and Kato. There's definite similarities. And that is something I know the comic books have in recent, you know, well, I say recent, but probably in like the last 20 years or so. That's something the comic books have certainly run with, where there was like a Lone Ranger Green Hornet comic, which showed like one case, which kind of like transcended time, you know, like the Lone Ranger starts it, and then his like, you know, his ancestor has to like finish it. But I like that idea. Like that's cool that two of like, you know, our famous pulp heroes do have a connection in some way.
Totally.
Even if it's not often exploited.
Totally. I liked that we've done so many pulpy characters in our tenure here on Failure to Franchise. You know, we did Dick Tracy, the Rocketeer, the Shadow that you just mentioned, the Phantom.
Yeah,
and now the Green Hornet, and we will be looking at the Lone Ranger one day. So,
well, we have in fact we have an entire pulp series like in our planned, and people might ask, well, why didn't you have Green Hornet as part of that? And once we talk about this movie and the tone it takes, I think that will become more apparent.
Definitely,
so like, even though this character has pulp origins, this movie is kind of a little different than everything else we've looked at in those runs. And like, you know, obviously we'll talk about that as like the approach, but I just wanted to make that clear to why we never put Green Hornet in with those series. This one does kind of stand apart, even though, you know, backstory wise it fits in.
Yeah. Well, that's a great transition to talk about the behind the scenes of this movie properly. Because this movie came out in 2011, but it goes all the way back to 1992 when it tried to get off the ground. So bear with me here. This is one of these moments where there's a lot to cover. I'm going to try my best to not sound like I'm just listing things off.
Well, it's funny because we just said, and this is where you have to say, well, we don't think the Green Hornet's that popular. It's not really remembered, but you would never know that from how many people tried to make this movie.
Big name people too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just nobodies at some rink-a-dink studio. These are big names. So 1992, the Green Hornet, the rights are in limbo. And they are being negotiated with Universal Pictures. And in 1993, they hire Chuck Farrer, who directed Hard Target, Barbed Wire, which is a movie I think we're going to cover one day, and Virus, a movie I love.
Ugh, okay.
And by love, I mean I watched it when I was like 10 years old and was terrified by it.
Okay. You might want to revisit it and see how you feel.
Nope. I want it to live in my memory of being disgusting and weird. Anyway, he had finished the screenplay. Then Rich Wilkes, who was in charge of the Triple X movies with Vin Diesel, he rewrote the script. George Clooney was signed to be the Green Hornet, but then had to drop out to then go make Batman and Robin, a movie I just rewatched. Mm-hmm. And, well, it's a lot. So he drops out. Greg Kinnear is being looked at the role of Britt Reed, by the way, because then they sign Jason Scott Lee as the role of Kato. And the reason they pick him, well, he starred in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. So they're getting their clone. Yeah. Basically, that's what they're doing. He was also in The Jungle Book, which is a live action adaptation that I think is pretty great and quite scary. Hey, do you remember that one when he played Mowgli?
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember it being like I remember liking it when I was younger.
Yeah. Do you remember when the guy gets he dies by the quicksand? It's pretty fucked up for a kid. Vaguely, it's pretty fucked up. Yeah. Anyway. Now
here's the crazy thing about the development of this.
This is wild.
Yeah.
They approach one Michel Gondry in 1997 as his feature film directorial debut. Yeah. So Michel Gondry is attached to this property all the way back to January 1997.
He hasn't even made some of his like most famous music videos yet.
Totally.
Like that's the wild thing here. Yeah.
So the movie is a year and a half of development. He's in it the whole time. He's directing it.
He actually rewrites the screenplay with Ed Neumeyer, who is the writer of RoboCop and Starship Troopers, which that makes me I'm really curious to see that screenplay. Totally.
But then, studio cancels it. Okay, so they cancel it, and development hell occurs. There's rumors that Mark Wahlberg was maybe offered the role around this time. I guess that would have been around Boogie Nights, right? Like that kind of era of him.
Yeah, we could have covered this earlier. We could have covered this during our Marky Mark in the Marky Mark series. So
yeah, what was it, Marky Mark and the Yucky Bunch?
Yeah,
or something like that. What is this? This episode we've forgotten our theme months and how they went, but yes, we did a whole series about Mark Wahlberg. So go listen to that. So the development is on ice for a few years until April 2000, where Jet Li is interested in playing Kato. So he gets paid $5.2 million against 5% of the film's gross. So like a huge chunk of change for Jet Li. And around 2000, like Jet Li was popping off. So this guy was the martial arts guy around this time, other than, Jackie Chan. But Jet Li was more of like a serious guy. Hey, would you say? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Christopher McQuarrie is writing the script now. Wild Mission Impossible fame. Like Chris McQuarrie has his hands in so many cool projects, so that's interesting. Lee unfortunately has to drop out because he's gonna go make The One in 2001. They spend about $10 million in developing this movie. Nothing's happening. Miramax comes around and approaches gets into a bidding war, I guess, for the rights and to make this to distribute this thing, and starts working on product placement for the Black Beauty. They receive the hero car from the manufacturer plus $35 million to go towards the marketing. It's reported here that it was tied the record that MGM made to make Die Another Day I actually distinctly remember that happening, even as a young kid, because the Aston Martin Vanquish was like my dream car at the time. I was like, that's the car.
Yeah.
I wanted it.
I also remember when that was like, so like when you would get news stories about how like, oh my God, James Bond is driving a BMW now instead of an Aston Martin.
Totally.
Right? That was like such a big deal, like in the movie franchise world, that like the product
yeah.
place. James Bond has always been kind of hailed as like one of the ultimate product placement franchises. But I just thought it was funny that like there was people that were angry that he had a BMW now instead of an Aston Martin.
Yeah, totally. And this is where, in 2004, Miramax Films approaches Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So Kevin Smith is attached to write and direct the film. And his quote here, he was so excited to make Green Hornet because he was Batman before there was a Batman. So that was kind of his thing. But he was iffy about it because when he was writing that Superman movie, John Peters and him like almost came to blows about how many issues with that giant spider. Like most everybody knows that story. If you know film history and geekdom, you know the Kevin Smith story and his Superman film. So look it up if you haven't. But he approaches Jake Gyllenhaal to play Britt Reed. He declines. And then by February 2006, Kevin Smith is officially out. This movie is dead for, I think, the third or fourth time.
Yeah, but as we said, don't worry. He does take that screenplay and turn it into his Green Hornet comic later. So
Correct.
He manages to save his what he was cooking a little bit.
And Green Hornet is only dead for 1 year. Because in 2007, producer Neil Moritz, the Fast and Furious guy, he comes around, gets the rights through his Sony-based company, hires Seth Rogen to star in this and co-write the script. And Seth Rogen is on record saying this was going to have the tone of a buddy action movie with humor like Lethal Weapon and 48 Hours. But they still don't have a director. So they get Stephen Chow of Kung Fu Hustle fame to come on board. And he's going to star as Kato. Awesome. Chow drops out.
That's the version I remember. Like when
Yes.
that was announced, I was like so excited about that.
Yes.
I was kind of like all in on it at that point. Yeah.
Very cool. But yes, he drops out. The famous creative differences. And then Trev, how many years later? Hold on. Let me just see the notes here. Almost 11, 12 years later, Michel Gondry.
Patience is a virtue, man. Like, don't you know what, Mahershala Ali? Don't give up hope. Maybe you'll be Blade in 2046 or something. You never know. Like, right.
Yes, Michel Gondry is back at it. He's directing the film, and Stephen Chow is actually going to be Kato, which is cool. So it's pretty cool that he wanted to stay on, but then unfortunately had to drop out from the role because of scheduling, and that's when they go to Taiwanese singer-actor Jay Chow. And then I guess they were talking to Nicolas Cage to play the villain, but he had dropped out. He wasn't interested in being just a straight-up bad guy, so they went to straight-up bad guy Christoph Waltz instead.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a straight bad guy. They're like, well, thankfully we know someone who will.
Totally. So yeah, that's the movie. That's how they got it made. But still, Trev, there's still one added piece to the puzzle. That this was slated for June 2010, but then it moved to July 2010, then December 2010, then January 2011, because, well, Trev, a movie called Avatar fucked up the world for about 2 years. And Green Hornet needed to be converted to 3D.
Yep.
So, from 1992 to 2011, that's your history, folks. Green Hornet.
Who's who of like filmmakers and stars, but obviously the wildest part of that story is the Michel Gondry thing, right? To be like one of the first people attached, and for it not to happen, and for it to be supposed to be his debut, and then to come all the way back around to like, oh my God, we have Michel Gondry, but now we have the Michel Gondry who made Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, right? And Be Kind Rewind, which like, that's a movie that feels like completely forgotten today, but people kind of forget like how beloved that film was at the time.
Big time.
I don't think it was a huge like financial success, but like people really dug that movie.
Oh, huge cult following. Huge. Huge. Well, Trev, was the wait worth it for Michel Gondry to get back in the saddle, make his film he wanted to make? I think it's time.
Yep.
So, this is what you want out of your life. This gives you a sense of fulfillment.
Drink?
I spend all night writing about the corruption of this town. And you do nothing.
For today's top story, newspaper mogul James Reed was found dead, leaving his son in charge of his media empire.
Sorry to hear about your father.
Hey, Kato, you knew my dad pretty well, right? Now that he's gone, I'm thinking I haven't done anything good my whole life. I'm not sure what I should do.
Wanna see something cool?
Whoa! You did that? What did you think of my father?
Was a complex man.
Think about this, Kato. We've been completely wasting our potential. This city needs our help. We could be heroes. Here's what will make us different. We will pose as villains to get close to the bad guys. That way, no one will suspect we're really the good guys. I want you to take my hand, and I want you to come with me on this adventure.
I'll go with you, but I don't want to touch you.
Okay, you don't have to take my hand, but will you come with me on this adventure?
Okay.
Yes. What do we call him? The Green Hornet.
I'm Lenore Case. I'm the new secretary.
Perfect.
I want the head of the Green Hornet, and I want it tonight.
You know who you are? You're a human Swiss Army knife. Just when you think there couldn't be any more cool things, a new thing comes out. What's this?
Is it gas gun?
A gas gun? How does it even work?
Okay.
Let's roll, Kato. Red light, stop! Stop! Camera got us. Can I shoot one?
When newspaper magnate James Reed dies, his son Britt inherits his empire. Problem is, Britt is a party all the time, frat guy man-child who is borderline incompetent in everything he does. But after meeting his father's driver Kato and rescuing a couple of innocent people by happenstance, the duo decide to fight crime together while also using the newspaper to promote their actions. This, of course, leads to an escalation in crime, as well as the attention of mob kingpin Chudnovsky, a gangster going through a midlife crisis.
That's right, Green Hornet. So we both have seen this before. But we've never talked about this film in any way, as most people don't today. You know, it's again, this is a movie that's kind of forgotten to time a little bit. Why is that, and how do we feel like it should be? Chris, first of course, for both of us, I want to hear what you originally thought of it when you saw it, and like, you know, what you thought this time.
I think my memory when I saw it the first time was it was just really forgettable. I think it was one of those movies that was like in one ear out the other. Forgot it by the next morning. So really not a lot to talk about. However, this is the cross I bear at failure to franchise. You know, I have to dissect something that is ultimately forgettable. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to tell you what I thought this time. And this is still just forgettable and bad. Like, there's one joke here, and it's that Britt is an incompetent buffoon. But Kato is the real hero, which is not a bad concept, Trev. Okay? It's not a bad concept. I like that. But it's beaten to death, and it's run into the ground for 2 hours. Britt is such an idiot that he's not an underdog. He's an unlikable jerk. And I talked last episode about Car 54 being like just a really irritating character in one of the performances. I just thought he was irritating. Here, it's again irritating. Britt is awful. He's rude. He's sexist. He's unfunny. Kato doesn't need Britt. So what's the point of their partnership? If I'm gonna watch, as Seth Rogen said, a buddy action movie. I want to make sure these guys are buddies. And I think this movie fails at creating a great duo with a great friendship that I can root for, well, many adventures to come. And I think that's what ultimately kills this movie, is that Seth Rogen's brand of humor, which is something I really like. I cannot overstate this enough, that I like Seth Rogen. Canadian hero. I love his most recent work with the studio. I love that era of Superbad. Some of the greatest laughs I've ever had in the theater was in his films. But this is not gelling. And to go to kind of sync up to what you said before about why we didn't include this with the other movies when we did another pulpy theme, this movie is not, like, this movie doesn't care about the source material of it being a pulpy classic. It's trying to go through that Seth Rogen modern comedy lens, and it's just not working. And it becomes, well, we've said this a lot, who is this for? So, your turn.
So you love, like, this kind of stuff. So I don't know if this will blow your mind or not, but, like, you know, another movie that came, so Green Hornet comes out in 2011. You know another movie that comes out in 2011? Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Which we have done.
Yeah.
Another, like, you know, infamous kind of, you know, well, I don't know if you ever heard Ryan Reynolds talk about that movie, but he doesn't like it.
No.
Another infamously bad superhero movie. But what I think is interesting about that is that in the years before that movie happened, and I'm sure we talked about this in that episode, in 2007, they were really close to making a Green Lantern movie starring Jack Black, which was going to be a comedic version of Green Lantern. And the script for that, like, kind of leaked online, and the fans freaked out because they're like, "What are you doing? You're taking this property and you're, like, making fun of it, right? You're not respecting the source material." So it's just strange that the same year they finally make the Green Lantern movie that, you know, nobody ends up really liking, but it's still ostensibly doing a more, like, it's being more respectful. The other, like, green superhero gets a movie that is more in line with what that Jack Black movie was going to be.
Totally.
Right? A movie that's kind of taking the piss out of, like, the source material. Now that's
not satirically.
Not satirically, no. Just like you said, just taking the character and filtering it through the sense of humor and the vibe that these two filmmakers, Goldberg and Rogen, already have. You know, which is like, I don't know. We'll talk about that. It's like an approach, right? What were they thinking? And here's what I have to say, and I mentioned this when you did the draw on this, when we picked our summer surprise. And I don't know if you remember me saying this, but this is a movie I own on DVD. Now, I have to explain that because I said that I didn't see this movie until DVD, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I think I'm pretty sure I own this movie. And this is like what I would call for me like a family video classic, where I don't know if you guys had family video in Canada, but I'm guessing you had, like, you know, your own video store chains up there.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that was great about family video is that, even more so than Blockbuster, they, like, love to sell off their stock after they didn't have to rent it anymore.
Yes,
so,
you've talked about this in the past. Yeah, totally,
yes.
totally.
So one of the main reasons my DVD collection especially is, like, so humongous is because after, you know, a few months, they would take all of, like, the new release copies of something. They only needed one more for the back stock, and they would just sell them all at, like, ridiculously low prices. So I have so many DVDs that have the family video sticker on the disc, and this is definitely one of them. So
okay.
I definitely bought this movie, and that reminded me that I was like, you know what? I think I bought it because when I did watch it, I remember liking this movie more than other people did. It's not that I loved it, but I remember thinking, like, that's better than people like were saying, you know. And I think it was just like you said, I really like Seth Rogen. And I was like, you know, the jokes in this are doing pretty well. And I definitely think I like this more than you, but I'm not going to argue with you about the movie because I'm going to talk about what its failings are in a second. But I will say, I'm going to sound strange here because we have had that talk before where we've talked about, like, what is it with these movies that take, like, the source material and don't respect it? And, like, obviously, arguably, this movie is doing that. But at the same time, it is kind of taking a character. We have to go back to, like, what Kevin Smith said, right? You were talking about how Kevin Smith talked about why he was, like, willing to do this movie when he had always said he never wanted to do a superhero movie. And one of the things he actually said was he liked not just that it was Batman before Batman, but he liked that there wasn't quite the same level of, like, oh my God, it's an iconic character.
Sure.
Right? He was like,
a little less pressure.
Less pressure, right?
Yeah.
And because the character, when you go back and like watch like episodes of the show or kind of go back and look at it, we just talked about how other than the overly complicated like criminal thing, it is a really simplistic character, and it doesn't have like, you know, it's not as beloved, it's not as important. So this movie has a take, right? This movie says like, okay, let's like take this character that people kind of know, but do this like comedic version of it, filter through our sense of humor. And, you know, it is something to say it has a take. And I actually think the take works for a bit. And that's kind of what you're getting at, right?
Yes.
Like at the beginning of the movie, when it is a movie about these two guys who are both kind of like, you know, they're both kind of like, they say in the movie too, right? They're not really realizing their full potential. When they like become immediate friends upon first meeting and just decide like almost as on a lark to become these vigilantes.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Yes,
Right? It's this
I
idea
agree
of like,
completely.
oh, it's these two buddies who are just like fucking around, and they almost like stumble into being heroes. That's pretty fun. Here's the problem, Chris. This movie is 2 hours long.
Yes, exactly.
Which it has no right to be. And where the movie starts to fall apart is when you feel them go like, oh God, we have to start making an actual Green Hornet movie. And once they have to start filtering in like, oh, we really have to start becoming heroes. Like the two things that slam this movie to a halt, unfortunately, and never let it like realize the potential I think it has in the early goings, is when it has to start like treating them more heroic and kind of go into a more stereotypical generic third act superhero movie, but also exactly what you were speaking about. I love the first like half hour, 40 minutes when these two guys are just friends and they're like goofing around with each other. They genuinely like each other and they're just having a good time. And then it does the ultimate trope thing. Oh, every buddy movie has to have a part where they start to hate each other. And the issue there is, like you said, when they go to that, the Britt Reed character becomes too much of an asshole.
Correct.
And it's like, nope, I can't care anymore, because he's just like, his anger is like so misplaced and he's such a piece of shit to Kato that there's kind of like no coming back from it.
Yeah.
So that's what like spirals the movie out of control, so it's kind of too bad for me because I can see the potential of this movie. I have a hard time hating this movie. I can't hate this movie.
And I don't hate it either. I don't hate it either. And I hope that came across when I was describing my thoughts. Yeah.
But I actually think there's like a lot of genuinely funny stuff in this. I actually think Seth Rogen equates himself pretty well to like superhero stuff. Like he's in great shape in this movie. You know,
I remember that being a big story too, that he like slimmed down for this role.
He looks really good in like the costume, right? Like it looks perfect. I think Jay Chow is pretty awesome as Kato. And he's good. Like their comedic timing together is good. I like the subplot of Christoph Waltz as like a villain having a midlife crisis.
That's
like
my favorite part of the movie.
he's-
My favorite part of the movie is his midlife crisis, listeners, is that he's so late into his career as like a mobster, like as a mob boss, that he's worried that he's not scary enough anymore. So he always wants to. He's always asking his underlings and everybody else. He's like, "How do I get scarier? Like, I still want to be threatening." And he comes up with some silly ideas, but it really feels like almost a send up of Christoph Waltz. Being like kind of stuck in villain mode, and he's like, I kind of want to play with this. So I actually thought that was super clever.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, like, I was watching this time, and this is probably what happened the first time I watched it, where I was like, why do people hate this again? And then it keeps going, and you hit this point where you're like, oh my God, this movie is like still going. And it gets exhausting, and that's too bad. So like, I wish it was better. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's fine. I think it's maybe even a little bit more interesting today because we are a little like, we're further on even from the early superhero boom that this is part of. So again, it's kind of interesting to see a movie that actually has like a very strong filmmaker take on the material. Might be the wrong take, arguably, if you're like a super hardcore Green Hornet fan.
Sure.
But at least it is a take. I wish if you cut like 20 to 30 minutes out of this movie and made just it really short and just really concentrate on the comedy, I think you'd have something.
Yeah.
It does not mesh the comedy and the actual superhero vigilante stuff well, and that's the problem.
No, it overstays its welcome. And I completely agree. The beginning stuff is pretty fun, and even just the back and forth between Rogen and Chow, like even his like, Kato, tell me your story. And like, you know, they sit down and, you know, they talk about his backstory. Oh, speaking of, this is one thing. Okay, I'm gonna maybe rewrite the movie right now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, which might make it better. I'm not sure. But did you feel when we're introduced to Kato, and he says, he was Britt's dad's driver and his mechanic, his engineer, and then already on the car had like modifications to it. It already had stuff that Britt's dad was saying, hey, install all this thing, all these wild gadgets. Did you think that it was going to be revealed that like Kato and Britt's dad had actually done this already and they were kind of crime fighting? Because hear me out. It kind of makes no sense that he's like building all this shit for no reason. Okay. And again, not to rewrite the movie, but wouldn't it have been easier to like make Britt's dad kind of some sort of ex-crime fighter with Kato? And then there would have been an actual arc for Britt's dad being like the shitty dad and not there all the time because he was busy, fighting crime, and also give a legit origin to Kato and like why he's so awesome. I just felt it was like right there. Am I crazy?
I'll even tell you that in a lot of like the modern day, and I think even earlier, that a lot of the Green Hornet comic books kind of get in this idea of like the Green Hornet is like this family lineage thing.
Sure.
Like I think there are versions of the comic where it's Britt Reed Jr. now.
Okay.
And it's like and he's taking up the mantle of his father. And there's definitely I know the Kevin Smith Green Hornet series, Kato is a woman, and I think she's like the sister of Kato, or like maybe she's the daughter of the original Kato. I can't remember, but like so that's something that's kind of been done before.
Okay.
The only slight defense I'll give them is that it's eventually revealed later in the movie that I guess his dad, like, if you want to give them any slight credit, the dad was doing stuff that would put him in like the crosshairs of like, murder attempts. Sure. By starting to like, his dad runs the newspaper originally. And we found out like his dad is kind of crooked. He's like helping the crooked DA kind of publish stories that are more favorable to him, but he ends up taking a stand against that. So maybe he wanted like a car to protect him because he knew people were going to try and get him. That's the only slight thing I can say to that. Yeah.
That's fair.
But I think what saves the approach they take is the fact that Britt and Kato do bond over how they both think Britt's dad is an asshole, right? And how he treated them both like shit. Like, so that kind of works,
I also was gonna mention that I know I said it was forgettable.
Yeah.
However, there has been some of that Gondry visual flair that has been burned into my memory since watching the movie. The movie itself is still pretty forgettable. However, the way Kato fights is very stylized, and even like that split screen edit following, the news of the bounty on the Green Hornet. Like there is some Gondry flair, not enough, but I think those moments really stand out and are cool. Do they make any sense? No. But
that split screen moment is like right out of a Gondry music video. Like he was doing so much like experimental stuff like that in his music videos. I'm of two minds about the Kato fights. So first of all, let's go back and track this for a moment. When it was supposed to be Stephen Chow, like not only starring but also directing, like we knew what this movie was going to be, right? Because Stephen Chow is an incredible visualist. Like the martial arts movies he's made, like his ability to merge like traditional martial arts with like kind of Looney Tunes-esque, reality breaks and surrealism. Yeah, like that's obviously what this movie could have been. And then he drops out, and you're like, oh no, that sucks, But then they get Michel Gondry, who is at this point, like you said, he's done these like wild movies with incredible visuals, and so it was still very, very exciting. And yeah, like every like 20 minutes or so, there's like one shot that shows it off. Like I wish there was more of the Michel Gondry stuff in this for sure.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, and I wonder if you felt this way as well. Why I said I was of two minds about the Kato fights is like that stuff's really cool. Like I do love that visual where when like Kato runs over one car, but like it does that thing where the car like kind of splits and turns into like 10 versions of the same car and he runs across it. Like it's just it looks really cool, right? And then I'm watching and thinking, boy, Bruce Lee was his own special effect. Like his fights were the special effect. You didn't need to make them cooler through CGI. Sure. And it was just kind of a reminder that, no offense to Jay Chow, I'm not saying he has to live up to Bruce Lee. Like what a crazy, thing. But it was a reminder about how like, oh, no one is going to ever be Bruce Lee again, you know? And it's like kind of like the problem when you're taking this iconic character and you're saying like, yeah, you're gonna be like the new Kato, and everyone remembers that as being Bruce Lee's character. You just can't capture that again.
Yeah.
So it's like they kind of have to make up for that by making this guy's fights more slow-mo, and like putting in like this like thing where he can sense like things when put like with like red vision through his eyes. And it's like, okay, but like the Bruce Lee ones were just really good martial arts fights.
Well, for sure. And here, like, Jay Chou's not a martial artist by trade. He's an actor and a musician. You know, it's so I get they maybe have to add a little something, because actually what he lacks in the martial arts there, and they add things to it. He's actually a pretty good character and good actor too. Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of like you're saying, Bruce Lee. It's, you know, he had both. This guy, well, you lose a little bit over here, you gain over here. So. Yeah. I was going to also mention that I found the movie surprisingly violent. That I wasn't expecting. And it's weird too, because like Kato makes Britt a gas-powered gun, but also in the same scenes they're like shooting people and car crushing them and blowing them up, and I wonder how much of that was trying to lean into the satirical nature, because I kind of have like a thought of this movie being like, maybe they should have gone even further with the comedy and satire, because it just kind of lives in that middle ground. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Well, it does make you wonder, like we already said the thing about who is this for. It really makes you wonder, and I haven't seen them talk too much about this, but like what were Rogen and Goldberg's like intentions with this movie, right? Like why did they want to do this? And you have to wonder, were they already just thinking it'd be fun to make like a comedic superhero movie, and then this property fell in their lap, right? Sure. And they said like, well, this is a good one because no one cares about Green Hornet, you know? Because I can't imagine that. I don't believe that Seth Rogen like watched the Green Hornet show as a kid and said, someday I'd like to make a comedic version of that. You know, that seems unlikely, right? So it seems more like this is probably just them getting to do like one of their movies with an IP that they felt nobody would care about, and that gave them free reign, you know? Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know like what their approach was. I don't know why they would make it like a little violent or whatever. You're definitely right. Like, you know, especially like, spoiler alert, they do beat Jodorowsky. Yeah. And boy, their dispatching of him is like shockingly graphic and violent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, spoilers again, the DA thing too. Like, shockingly violent. Yeah. They don't hide it.
Like, speaking of the DA, this movie goes into the what is like a genre for me. The wow, I've been watching David Harbour movies long before I knew who David Harbour was genre.
That's funny. Hey, we've covered one of his movies here, Hellboy. So
I know, but that's like post, like, you know, Stranger Things David Harbour. But it's interesting how many movies I've gone back and he's in where I'm like, oh, I just didn't know who he was at this time, right?
Yeah,
like,
and now he's an Avenger.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's funny because when he came up in this, I was like, oh, it's like, oh, baby David Harbour, I mean, which means he's like 45 in this, you know. But
also, speaking of casting, and also my Batman rewatch, Tom Wilkinson plays Britt's dad here. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was Carmine Falcone in Batman Begins. And also, James Newton Howard does the score, who also did the score for Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Which one of these movies do you think both those guys are more proud of? Batman Begins or Green Hornet?
Tough.
You know, when I see Tom Wilkinson in this, it reminds me, and obviously we know that sometimes actors just take parts for money, you know. But you do think about that, like it's like perfectly exemplified here, where you think of an actor like Tom Wilkinson, who's such a serious actor, and you think about the craft of acting and why people get into acting and like what they're searching for in like the world of acting, right? How it's like, I really want to dive into the psychology of these characters and get to have these amazing scene partners and like really bring to life this character and like think about think about the emotions behind it, and then you think of him taking a part where it's like you're just gonna be in two scenes and you just yell at Seth Rogen and then you're dead
and a child.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I guess it's a good thing you got such a great actor, because in a small amount of time on screen, you know, he can make the most of it. But it's like, really, that's what you're using Tom Wilkinson for? Yeah. Like, he couldn't even do some flashbacks later to kind of get some more out of him, you know?
Totally. Did you watch this movie yesterday?
I did, yeah.
Okay. You know why I bring that up? Because it was somebody's birthday. It was Edward Furlong's birthday yesterday.
Oh boy.
And Edward Furlong Well, they filmed at a meth lab, and he was just there. But yeah, he's in
I was
this
gonna say
movie.
Edward Furlong in this playing a whacked out meth dealer, looking more healthy in this than Edward Furlong really looks today. Not that we don't like talking shit about actors, but yeah.
But you watched it on his birthday, and isn't that wild? Yeah,
Wow.
crazy. It keeps happening to us. Yeah, okay, so I know you mentioned Bruce Lee being the scene stealer for the TV show, right?
For sure, yeah.
And
yeah, we haven't even mentioned the name of the guy who played the Green Hornet in the original show, and that's Van Williams, who they did ask to make a cameo in this, and he was like, "Nah, I'm good,"
which is interesting, because why
Well,
not? What else
I
you
read
doing?
a little. I read a little history of him, and it turns out that he quit acting shortly after Green Hornet, and he was one of those guys who he did a couple other shows, and he, like he said, especially during Green Hornet, he's like, this just isn't for me. I don't like being in the spotlight. I don't like having to do the publicity and everything. So he got out of acting. So maybe
that's fair.
just part of it. Yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, Bruce Lee's Kato was the star of the show, right? And really stole every scene. Jay Chow doesn't really steal every scene that he's in here. However, he is very impressive. But I think also he shines because Britt Reed's character just kind of sucks, especially in the second half. So it's almost like he's being uplifted because the other character is like annoying. Like, would you agree with that? Like, I just feel
For sure.
like,
I mean, even like you said, like I was going to bring this up when you said it, because you mentioned how there's one joke here, and the joke is that Kato is the real hero.
Yeah.
And you're right that that's kind of the joke, but even that, the movie doesn't push it far enough, right?
No.
That's something that could be pushed even further, because as I said, once it gets into the second half and you feel like whether it's studio interference or whether it's Rogen and Goldberg, like kind of bowing to the own expectations of the genre, once it starts to become more of a standard Green Hornet movie, like they have to start kind of like balancing the two guys out a little bit more.
Sure.
And like that joke kind of gets lost, and suddenly Britt is doing stuff, and it's like, and I mean, obviously Kato is always the more capable one, but I think the movie would have been much funnier if, like, from beginning to end, Britt was just a nincompoop and Kato kind of did everything, right? That's the better joke to go through all the way to the end. But like, this is Hollywood franchise filmmaking where they're like, well, we need Britt to have the arc though, and he needs to like become a better person, and he needs to become a real hero by the end, and that's what they're trying to do. They're just never quite nailing it. So since they're getting it wrong anyways, I wish they hadn't even bothered to try. Basically,
Sure. It was nice seeing Cameron Diaz.
It was. This is a role so beneath her. It's not even funny.
I know. I know. Very like it was nice to see her, but I felt like no wonder she quits acting.
Dude,
like 3 years after this.
I had the exact same thought. I said that to Liz. I watched this with Liz and with my wife, and I said afterwards, like, Cameron Diaz like went away from acting for a while, and I said like this kind of movie to me is like the one got to be like one of the reasons why. Where she was just like, this is the shit I'm getting, like I'm the secretary that gets ogled and sexually harassed by both the heroes like throughout the movie, and that's kind of it,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and that's too bad too, because like there's a really funny like concept there also that like the movie starts to use and then never does again through like the rest of the movie, and then they verbalized at the end the idea that she is unwittingly the mastermind of this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're asking her what she thinks the Green Hornet and Kato will do next, when she, like Britt Reed and Kato, just regular Kato are asking her, and she's like speculating, well, here's what the Green Hornet will probably do, and then they go and do that. So she's actually the one giving them all their plans.
Totally.
That's a great idea, but like they do it once, then it's kind of forgotten about the rest of the movie, and then they say it at the end where they're like, oh yeah, you're actually our mastermind. It's like, well, God, I wish that was like a bigger part of the movie, because that's funny,
And they, again, Britt just treats her so poorly that it just it's and I've said this a million times on this podcast, but that stuff doesn't bother me. Like, like I'm not I don't get uppity about sexism in movies. Like I'm like, it's also a different time, so I take it as it was. But it was like, again, one joke. Mm-hmm. It is constant, and like Lenore doesn't even really get an arc. Really, you know what I mean? Like she's just kind of there. So yeah, no wonder
she's there because that character was in the source material.
100%.
Right? Like, yeah,
totally.
Oh, this is the other thing too, and this is the kind of thing. This is like the Peter Graves in the Mission Impossible movie, right? Like
totally, yeah.
Where in the original in the show, the '60s show, there are two characters who know that Britt is the Green Hornet and help him, and one is Lenore, his secretary, as we see here, and then the other one is the DA Scanlon, who is a good guy in the show. And like, I guess their clever subversion was let's make Scanlan the villain, right? But it's like, yeah, but you're subverting something that like only 80-year-olds remember, you know. So it doesn't really matter.
That's funny. Yeah, this one was like okay, you know. The first half is pretty. I like the beginnings of their relationships and their
like
the
montage of them like creating their costumes, building the Black
Very
Beauty,
cool.
and then like the first time they go out, I'm sorry, like there is something funny about like a superhero movie where the two guys go out and they're like, let's go on our first night of being superhero crime fighters, and then they're driving along singing Gangsta's Paradise together. Like it's good shit, you know? Like
yeah, and I really did like. I thought the final action scene was actually pretty inventive, especially when the show and the comic and the radio program, like the car is a huge part of this dynamic. So to involve the car from start to finish of the action scene was awesome. Like a car getting onto the printing press, Kato somehow getting it off, now picking up Britt, going into an elevator, cracking and smashing all the glass as it's going up, and then cutting it in half, but still having a front-wheel drive car, and then shooting missiles and driving around an office building. What's with all these movies we're watching that end in office buildings, action scenes?
Cars. What's with all these movies we're watching? Summer surprise movies that end with cars driving through buildings. Action Jackson and Green Hornet.
Oh my god, wild stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I thought the action scene at the end was pretty awesome and very inventive and something I have personally never seen before on that level. So it was pretty cool. Didn't really like Britt Reed getting Kato's like powers of observation or whatever. I thought that was unneeded. I thought it was kind of just it was connecting a dot that didn't need to be connected.
Yeah, I mean, at least they undercut it at the very last moment where he still trips and falls,
Correct.
you know. But and that's like that's some of the best jokes in the movie are the moments where it kind of does undercut or subvert like the normal stuff that's in these kind of movies. So like, I'll tell you like a couple of those that I did think were funny. Was there's the scene where the crooked DA, David Harbour, asks Britt to like meet with him, unbeknownst to Britt, so he can set him up to kill him. Yeah. But unbeknownst to Scanlan, the DA, Britt has brought like a recording device to record him, you know, admitting that he's a crooked DA, so he can expose him through the paper. And there's a moment then where, you know, he hasn't figured out yet that the DA killed his father. Actually, he thinks his father died from a bee sting, right? But then the DA reveals like, no, I killed your dad. And we do this thing where the camera kind of zooms in on Britt as he's like putting that together in his head. He's like thinking about all of it. And like normally in a movie, like obviously that it's like, okay, in like a split second, he's thinking about all this. And I love that it comes back and David Harbour says like, well, I can tell from this stupid look on your face for the past 5 minutes that you've been putting it all together in your head. Like, that's funny, right? Yeah. And then the other version of that is at the end, you know, after that big like final fight scene, you know, Britt gets shot in the shoulder and he has to so Kato, they can't go to the hospital obviously because of, you know, they are wanted criminals, so he takes them to Lenore's house, which is when they revealed to her who they actually are, and he's like, I can't go to the hospital, I need you to get this bullet out of my shoulder. And he's like tells her to get a knife and he tells her to sterilize it, and it's like that typical thing that's always gonna happen to me. And then the second she touches the knife to his shoulder, he's just like, nope, can't do it, take me to the hospital.
No, it's got some clever moments for sure.
Like the dialogue is genuinely funny, and you're reminded that, like, oh yeah, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are great comedic writers. Correct. Right. So there are legit funny jokes in this, and like the interplay between these two guys is legit funny when they're playing them as friends. You don't want to watch them start to hate each other, and that like I just wish that entire section like wasn't in the movie. Except I will say this too, the fight scene between the two of them is actually a really good fight scene. You know, for like
it's brutal.
A martial arts expert versus Seth Rogen, like it's good. It's like a legit good movie fight scene. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it's so long, and again so violent that you just think these guys can't come back from this. Yes. And if I feel that way about my buddy comedy, you got problems. So as amazing as the action scene is, it just feels out of place.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So why do you think, well, I guess we know why they didn't make sequels. Neil Moritz is on record just saying, we didn't make enough money. He flat out said, we spent too much money. And in the start of this, I said, it made all 230 million. Not bad, but not enough. So any sequels...
And the reviews were bad too, right? This is the kind of
Yeah.
movie where maybe if like it made that much money but had like 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, you'd go like, okay, maybe let's try a second one, take the budget down a little bit or something, or try to forget about the 3D post conversion.
Sure.
But like when you're like basically reviled and you just kind of break even, it's not worth going forward, Yeah.
I didn't understand the reviled nature.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
that's what I mean. Is like, I think by the time I watched this on video, I already knew that everyone said this was like a total piece of shit. And then I watched it, I'm like, it's not, right? I think, part of the issue might have been, as we said, this is 2011, right? This is when people are just starting to be like, oh my God, Hollywood's finally taking superhero movies seriously.
Maybe.
And then here's this one that is not taking the genre seriously, right? And now that is like, not only not taking the genre seriously, but legit, like, kind of like taking an established character and making like a comedic version of it that's not respecting the source material. And again, not that I think people really cared about Green Hornet, but they could still sense that to a certain degree. So people were probably overly harsh about this movie at the time. But yeah, so it doesn't deserve to be reviled, but it kind of does deserve to just be forgotten, I guess.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's kind of my overall take, memory, and now revision of it too. Like, I just think that this movie is very forgettable, and I will forget it again.
Yeah, I don't think, even though I have that family video DVD, right, which I might never watch it again. And the real shame of that is that, again, I wish that's not the case. I wish the whole movie was like what that first half hour, 40 minutes promised, because there's a version of this that I think I would really, really like and kind of herald as like this, like, underappreciated little mini, not classic or anything, but like, something that should be like respected a little bit more. But then it just keeps going and you're like, oh no, I guess, yeah, that's right. I can see why this is like more forgettable.
Seth Rogen did the opposite of Ryan Reynolds with this one. He does not talk about it a lot. No. And the only real interview I had found in the research was from 2013 with Mark Maron on his podcast. And he had said just like the film was a nightmare, and saying that the executives paid little attention to just how much money they were spending. And then that comes back to what Neil Moritz said, right? I think they were so close to making a sequel. Even Evan Goldberg says that the sequel's already mapped out. Quoted, "You don't make a movie like this without considering the sequel. Yes, we have the whole plot planned out." Which is kind of what we would have done in the first place. So he doesn't talk. They none of them talk about this movie a lot. So they've even seemingly let it be forgotten. You know what I mean?
If you are somehow like one of the few like Green Hornet the movie super fans that is so bummed out that it never got that sequel, the good news is there actually is a sequel to it in comic book form. In 2011, Dynamite did do a 4-issue miniseries called Green Hornet Aftermath, which is specifically in the continuity of the movie and is a follow-up to the movie. And it is one of the only Green Hornet comics that is then, it's like more comedic in tone, right? Because it's trying to match this. Like typically Green Hornet comics are more, serious pulp material, like the original source material. But this one is trying to be like, oh yeah, this is a sequel. So you can check that out, but that's as good as it's going to get for you. So.
Yeah. Anything else? You'll have to wait for a potential reboot. 2016, Gavin O'Connor of Warrior and The Accountant movies was signed on to produce and direct. That fell apart. To here we go again. 2020, more development. Director Lee Wanell was attached, and screenwriter David Koepp. Yeah, that was the last time we ever heard of it. So
yeah, well, and even I noticed this wasn't in your notes, but I think you might know. I can't remember. You probably saw this and maybe just forgot about it. Like about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a brief moment where Kevin Smith was supposed to be developing a Green Hornet animated series too.
Oh,
because he's
like
still
a She-Ra one or He-Man one.
Yeah, exactly. And that didn't go anywhere either. But it's obviously still like he wrote that comic for quite a while, so it's definitely a character he still likes, and I could see him still trying to be involved with it in some regard. But I mean, I will say this: like watching this movie. I don't know, like the character is kind of like generic to a degree only because of what follows him, right? Like you said, like the fact that other heroes come who are very, very similar.
Yeah.
And even like the central conceit of the character we think is maybe like overly complicated, but but there's nothing about this movie that makes me say like, well, they shouldn't make any more Green Hornet stuff, right?
No.
Like in a world that is kind of still superhero crazy and is like looking for, you know, pulp material. And I will say that like I just recently watched the Spider Noir show on Amazon Prime, which I really enjoyed. You know, it's funny because like it's Nicolas Cage. He was supposed to be in this, right? And it's in Spider Noir. And I remember you had asked me your big concern about that show is you're like, oh, I bet is Nicolas Cage barely in it? You know, is it like Mandalorian where it's usually the Spider and Nicolas Cage just does the voiceover and you barely see him? I can tell you, as someone who watched all 8 episodes, it's almost the opposite. We're almost like, is the Spider going to be in this? It's like 95% Nicolas Cage, and you're kind of like, I think they need more scenes where he's the Spider. Jeez, but like that kind of reminded me like this pulp stuff is fun. You know, like that show did it well, and I wouldn't mind seeing like a streaming show of like Green Hornet or something with like the original tone, right? Go back to that, like, because I just like that tone that we've talked about before. So I don't think this project should be an IP killer. This project was just definitely the wrong approach, and maybe just the wrong approach because it didn't even commit to its own approach. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes to our question, does this deserve sequels? And if they had made the sequel and promised me that Kato and Britt would stop fighting and not be irritating to each other, then yes. I want to see that buddy action movie that Rogen promised me. Because I got it for about 40 minutes. So, yeah, if that's the case, then for sure. But if it's going to do more of just irritating, angry, rude Brit, I couldn't do another sequel with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'd say no in general because I don't know how many movies you can do of this, like this comedic idea, right? These like these two jackasses who shouldn't be heroes, but kind of accidentally become heroes. You get one movie out of that, you know, and I think the problem is just by nature of this genre, you almost do have to end the movie with them saying like, well, they actually are heroes now, you know, and then it just inherently becomes less interesting. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I think one and done is probably fine here.
Yeah. That's all my notes.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm surprised we had this much to say about it, honestly. Like,
yeah, no, same here.
Yeah.
I think you know what though, we're professionals.
That's right. Hire us to make Green Hornet next time. You know?
You know what? No.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do that much work. Summer Surprise. It's been interesting. And we got one more to go. And that is, it's not in front of me.
Catherine Bigelow's Detroit. No, just kidding.
I swear to God. I will say, do we see Detroit get destroyed in what's coming next? World War Z, or from 2013. That's the next one we're doing. So, right on time for the new Brad Pitt movie, directed by David Fincher, written by Quentin Tarantino. Not this one.
Not this one, no.
No, not this one. But yeah.
Although this movie, the movie we're about to do, World War Z, does have the Fincher connection, which we'll talk about. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that'll do it. So, unless you got everything, do you got anything else? You good?
No. Yeah, sure. I'll just say.
See, I knew it. See, listeners?
You're going to be with me on this. I know you're going to come along with me on this. It's just really quick, because we said this movie's beneath Cameron Diaz and beneath Tom Wilkinson. Let's throw Edward James Olmos on that pile as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Totally. Come on, man. You got Adama there. Let's give him something to do, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Instead of just being the managing editor of the Daily Sentinel. Okay, follow along. At F2FPod. That's at F2, the number 2 FPod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Join the tribe and hit that subscribe. Rate, review, whatever you do. Say those out of order. That's okay, though. You know the drill. It would be cool if you did star rating or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app. That would be very, very nice of you. And we will see you next episode with World War Z. Or World War Z.
Nope, World War Z.
World War Z from 2013.
I saw somebody say like there was like some YouTube video when I looked up this movie, and it was like how Green Hornet like killed Seth Rogen's career, and I was like, that's not true at all. Right? Like he's never had like a fallow period. Like he's fine. He managed his career really, really well.
I also think, and it's something I guess I didn't really equate or contrast in the actual episode, but he is very, very likable. Mm-hmm. And this movie makes him unlikable in a lot of spots.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm like, this is, it's tough to make Seth Rogen unlikable. And maybe people just really reacted negatively to that. You know what I mean?
And we didn't say it either, but like, when they're like, well, they have to like fight over each other. It's like, it's over a woman. Like, come on, it's like the laziest bullshit. Like, yeah,
totally.
Yeah.